All right, everybody, welcome back. We are going to jump right in today. We always like to do a deep dive, and this time we're looking at the future of regulation,
Okay.
and specifically here in the U.S.
Yeah.
So all those rules and guidelines that
hmm
kind of shape how businesses operate, right?
Yeah.
And we were looking at some analysis, and it seems like things are changing,
Absolutely.
maybe more than we even realize.
hmm
And we might even be moving into like a new era of regulation,
Mm.
one where agencies are kind of offering guidance more than laying down the law.
Interesting.
Yeah, so maybe moving away from like hard and fast rules.
Okay, so rather than like thou shalt and thou shalt not, more like, hey, here's what we're thinking. What do you guys think?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit softer, right? It's a little more
A little more collaborative, maybe?
collaborative. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm really curious, why are we seeing this change?
Yeah.
And what does it actually mean, like for someone running a business or even just someone trying to understand, what's coming down the line for them?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And one of the things that this analysis really highlighted for me was the fact that, anytime a new regulation comes out,
Right.
there's a chance it could be challenged in court.
Yeah.
And agencies are really becoming a lot more, kind of wary of those legal battles.
Right. Sense.
So they're shifting gears a little bit.
So it's less about like avoiding lawsuits and more about just kind of providing direction.
Well, I think it's both, right? I mean, I think that, they want to avoid those big, kind of costly court battles, but
Right.
they also still want to provide, direction.
Right.
I mean, they are agencies. They're supposed to be regulating.
Yeah.
But they're doing it through, kind of different mechanisms. So things like, frameworks, best practices, advisory opinions.
Oh, yeah.
It's more like a GPS system, It suggests a route, but you still have to actually drive the car,
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's a little less strict.
exactly.
Um, but speaking of things that take time,
Mm-hmm.
I was also looking in this analysis, and it talked a lot about extended rulemaking processes.
Yes.
Like it sounds like agencies are kind of taking their sweet time with new regulations.
Well, they are being more deliberate,
Right.
right?
That's what's going on there.
Yeah, so, instead of just rushing regulations through, they're really, taking the time to gather input from stakeholders.
Yeah.
They're doing really thorough analyses,
Mhm.
making sure all their ducks are in a row
Oh, I see.
before they issue, anything official. It's like a chef,
Oh.
who's meticulously prepping all of their ingredients before they even turn on the stove.
So longer timelines. I mean, for a business owner, that could actually be a good thing,
It could.
right? Like they have more time to give their input.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's one of the positive potential outcomes of this is that, there are these longer timelines. So there are more opportunities for public comment,
Okay.
more chances for you as a business owner to provide your input,
Right.
raise any concerns that you have,
Okay.
potentially even shape the final outcome, Think of
Yeah.
it like, being invited to a tasting menu
Lo-
and you get to provide feedback on each course.
Okay.
You have a real chance to influence that final product.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that here in the U.S. These longer timelines for regulations, but what happens when we kind of zoom out?
Right.
Look at the global level,
Right.
right? Because the source also talked about diverging regulations across jurisdictions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the, kind of big question marks, I think, going forward is, we have this trend towards, maybe slower regulation, more deliberate regulation in the U.S., but, increasingly we're also seeing, regulations kind of diverging across different regions.
So like different rules in different places.
Exactly. So, you can imagine a world where, California has one set of rules for a certain industry,
Mm.
New York has another, the EU has another.
Oh, wow.
And, it could be the same industry.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about here.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
For businesses, especially those
Yeah.
that are operating, across borders.
Across state lines even?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, that's one of the things that we need to keep an eye on going forward.
But could that also be a good thing, though? Like, I mean, the source talked about how that could lead to more innovation.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, right? Because on the one hand, you have this potential for, real complexity and kind of a compliance headache.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you also have this possibility that, these different jurisdictions could become testing grounds for new regulatory approaches.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So you could have, some that succeed, some that fail.
Right.
But the insights that are gained from those, kind of real world laboratories could ultimately lead to better, more effective regulations overall.
Oh, so like a bunch of experiments going on at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like having, multiple versions of a software update being tested simultaneously.
Okay.
You can learn from each one and then incorporate the best features into the final release.
So, okay, so we've got, kind of this slower, more deliberate rulemaking process.
Yeah.
We've got more opportunities for input from the public.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this, really fascinating,
Okay.
complex trend of, these regulations diverging in different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one more thing I want to touch on,
Okay.
and that's the legal piece.
Mhm.
Because the source also talked about how, we could be seeing a surge in legal action,
Yeah.
like both for agencies and against agencies.
Absolutely.
So what does that mean for, anyone trying to kind of navigate this increasingly complicated world?
Well, I think first and foremost, it really underscores the importance of staying informed.
Oh.
Right. Like you really need to keep your finger on the pulse of what agencies are doing,
Mm-hmm.
what court decisions are being made, what kind of emerging trends are on the horizon.
So, like, don't wait for someone to tell you what's happening.
Exactly. Be proactive about it. Subscribe to industry newsletters, follow relevant legal blogs, attend webinars.
Okay.
There are a lot of different ways to kind of stay on top of things.
So it's almost like knowledge is power.
It really is in this new world of regulation.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other thing I would say is, don't underestimate the power of your own voice.
Okay.
Right? Participate in those public comment periods.
Okay.
Engage with industry groups. Make sure that your perspective is being heard.
Okay.
The more you understand this changing regulatory landscape, the better equipped you'll be to really adapt and thrive.
Okay. So as we're wrapping up here today, I do want to leave you with a thought.
Okay.
Something that we didn't really see addressed directly in the stuff that we were looking at, but I think it's worth pondering.
All right.
If we are moving towards more guidance and fewer hard and fast rules,
Yeah.
how do we make sure that there's still accountability?
Mm.
What happens when someone doesn't follow the suggested path?
Interesting.
Will we need new ways to ensure fairness and compliance
Right.
in this kind of new, more nuanced world?
That's a great question.
Yeah. So just something to think about as you're navigating
Yeah.
these changes.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, stay curious.
Great stuff.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.